There was a single day in his life that he never talked about publicly. Not because it was insignificant, but because everything he had built over decades nearly disappeared within a few hours. And the worst part wasn't how fast it happened, but how ordinary the day began. He woke up expecting routine, emails, meetings, decisions he had made 1,000 times before. Nothing that suggested danger, nothing that felt unusual. And that's exactly why it was so dangerous. By mid-morning, the first signal appeared, subtle enough to ignore a call that felt slightly tense, a number that didn't quite align, a delay that was easy to rationalize, and like most people who have experienced long-term success, he trusted the system instead of questioning it. Success has a way of training you to expect continuity. When things work for long enough, you begin to assume they will keep working, not because you're careless, but because your attention has been rewarded for focusing elsewhere. That day, his attention was elsewhere while he moved through meetings. A chain reaction had already begun behind the scenes, triggered by a decision made months earlier, one that seemed minor at the time, logical even, and completely harmless on its own. The problem wasn't the decision, it was the timing. Markets shifted faster than expected. A partner reacted defensively. Information moved slower than fear. And within hours, confidence turned into hesitation. Hesitation into doubt, and doubt into withdrawal. By early afternoon, the numbers were no longer subtle. Losses accelerated. Phones rang more frequently. Voices changed. What once felt like a controllable situation began to feel unstable, and for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Loss of control. The terrifying part wasn't the money. It was the realization that systems he believed were solid were suddenly fragile, exposed not by incompetence, but by assumptions that no longer held. Every decision he made that day carried weight, because doing nothing was also a decision, and acting too fast could make things worse. He had minutes, not days, to decide who to trust, what to shut down, and what to protect. Pressure compresses time. Moments stretch, every option feels incomplete. This is where most people panic, not because they lack intelligence, but because fear narrows perspective. A narrow perspective leads to irreversible mistakes. He didn't panic, not because he was fearless, but because he had prepared for moments like this in a way most people never do. Years earlier, he had built redundancy into his life, not just financially, but psychologically, assuming that one day, everything could move against him at once. That assumption saved him. Instead of trying to fix everything, he focused on containment, identifying what could still be controlled and isolating what couldn't. He slowed decisions that felt urgent but irreversible. He accelerated decisions that protected downside. By nightfall, the damage was clear. He hadn't escaped unscathed. Losses were real. Reputation was strained. Confidence was shaken. But the empire still stood. Barely. The next weeks were quiet. No announcements. No interviews. Just rebuilding trust. Revisiting assumptions. And accepting that survival isn't about never facing collapse, but about facing it without self-destructs. Years later, people would point to his success as proof of brilliance or luck, never realizing how close everything came to ending in a single day. That day changed him, not by making him more aggressive, but more cautious, not by making him fearful, but more precise. Because once you experience how fast stability can vanish, you stop mistaking momentum for safety. This story isn't meant to dramatize failure, but to reveal how fragile success can be when too many assumptions align at the wrong moment. So the real question isn't whether one bad day could change everything for you, but whether you're building your life in a way that can survive when it does. If you want more true stories about near-collapse moments, hidden crises, and the decisions that quietly save everything, make sure you subscribe. Because the next story reveals how a billionaire survived the moment most people never recover from.